It's your girl, Lady Impress from Cali's Best Radio Show, and I'm also the editor of Cali FM. And I'm going to be speaking today on the Demetrius Stanley police killing in San Jose. So I just came across the story. I actually hadn't heard about it on the 31st when it happened, but today San Jose police released surveillance video about this shooting. So you have a black man who's out on bail for an armed robbery and some other criminal activities that he's been involved with. There are undercover officers in his neighborhood, close to his house, in front of his house, in unmarked cars, just doing surveillance. He comes out the house with a handgun, the armed criminal. The criminal who is currently out on bail for armed robbery and some road rage incident. And he comes out, walks up and down the street, and then walks past a first undercover car with an officer sitting in it, unmarked, no plain clothes. Then walks past a second car that has another officer in it, unmarked, plain clothes. Then he doubles back, comes to the officer's car, opens the door with his handgun drawn, and the officer inside, who is plain clothes, shoots and kills him. And when I first saw the video, I was pretty straightforward to me. I didn't see anything unjustified about the shooting. No matter who would have been sitting in that car. If an unknown person comes up to you and opens your car door and you are sitting in your car with a gun, you probably gonna shoot that person, right? So then I go to Twitter and I see this hashtag with his name and Black Lives Matter. And this is this is the story that they're putting out. Demetrius Stanley was wrongly executed by plain-clothed undercover officers who admittedly never identified themselves as police. So when police are on surveillance, they don't normally come up and say, "Hey, I'm the police and we're surveilling you." The severely underdressed officers stalked, they used the word stalked, the outside of Demetrius' home. They claim to have been there for a follow-up investigation, which they should normally show up in uniform with a warrant to do so. No, they were doing surveillance. So I don't know if some of these people don't use encyclopedias or whatever, not before they write these things or they express their concepts, but they were doing surveillance. And this isn't funny because a man did lose his life, but let me finish reading what they have on Twitter. Instead, they stayed hidden outside and observed the entire family while inside the home. Demetrius went outside to move a car and noticed that his home was being stalked. One of the plainclothes officers bolted down the street to try and stay out of his field of vision. Stanley calmly walked down the street to see who was following him. When a person is running away from you, they are not following you. Okay, I don't know if that is above the pay grade for whomever wrote this, but when a person is running away from you, they are not following you. Okay, so Stanley calmly walked down the street to see who was following him. He did have a gun, but only as a form of protection. His elderly grandmother, sister, and girlfriend were inside the home. It was his duty to protect them from intruders. No one was intruding in the home. Hello. Where do they find these people? This is black.outreach.sj. The most ridiculous statement I've ever seen on a police-involved shooting came from this organization. Let me finish reading what they wrote. When Demetrius approached the unmarked car, a civilian blue Honda Odyssey, the driver of the car swung the door open abruptly and shot Demetrius from inside the van. Wait a minute, a blue Honda Odyssey shot Demetrius from inside the van. Okay, Demetrius never discharged his weapon. Well, hell, if I had been sitting in the car, whether I was plainclothes policeman or not, this guy had no business outside walking up and down the street with a handgun looking for trouble. If he was so concerned about his elderly grandmother and everybody else that was in the house, he should have had his behind in the house on the phone with 911. That's how we handle things. This is how adults handle things. Okay. We know these details because we were able to view neighborhood surveillance footage. There is no body cam footage because the officers were in regular clothes. The media will show you just 3 still images from the video we saw. They will leave out key contextual details so they can justify what they did. Do not trust the media. Do not trust SJPD. Do not trust the city government. There is even more to this story. We will publish the truth they do not want you to see. Stay tuned. We will share ways to help support Demetrius' family soon. Here we go again. People want to be up in arms and protesting a criminal who is walking up and down the street opening people's doors. Just so happens that it's a undercover cop. That could have been anyone sitting in their car, and he would have opened up their door pointing a gun at them. I don't know what's wrong with black people. I don't know what's going on in the minds, and I just keep saying I've done a couple of op-eds now that the black folks are traumatized. Hey, I'm black. I could give a F about police, but when you look at these things, you have to look at it through a clear lens. This guy, Demetrius Stanley, was completely in the wrong. And as a side note, and this killing was justified in my opinion. And as a side note, why are we, California, continuously letting out criminals on bail or no bail? Why are criminals who committed egregious or very violent or potentially very violent acts not being held in jail? This guy just comes out of his house with a gun. Nobody's intruding into his house. Nobody's on his property. There is no justification whatsoever for what he did. And like I said, if he was scared or worried about somebody intruding into his house, he should have stayed his ass in his house and called 911. Period. So these types of organizations, black.outreach.sj, Black Lives Matter, BLM, it is so outrageous. They're making every black person look like a dumb fuck, and we are not. Some of us can use our brains. Some of us can write a little bit better than this little message that they put out that's contradictory in itself. You know, it's just simply tragic that we are constantly defending criminals in our community. We are constantly defending our criminals in our community. For me, he should have never been let out of jail on bail, and none of this would have happened. We can unpack and rewind all the way back to the source, which is him. So let's sit back and watch the BLM circus and the black.outreach.sj circus. But for me, he aimed a gun at somebody, just happened to be an officer, and he was killed and he was shot. All I have to say is, boy, bye. I'm sorry for his family, but to be protesting and be talking about this as a false narrative, everyone can see the video. Now, I don't know how people interpreted all these things differently in all these different ways, and they add all these things into it. Oh, he had his elderly grandmother in the house and all these people in the house, and people were intruding. No one was intruding. No one was following him. They were sitting in their cars doing surveillance. Hello and goodbye, Demetrius Stanley.